USA rebounding from back-to-back losses with a blowout of Argentina. Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal each scored 17, and the Americans took control from the outset, 108-80. Here's Bradley Beal on the pulse of the team.
Our biggest thing is we have to realize it's not the NBA, and Coach Pop keep re-emphasizing that every single day. It's way more physical. Guys are smarter. These guys have been playing together for 5-10 plus years. So they have this experience and the chemistry, and we're trying to develop that in a short period of time. So, sense of urgency is kind of, what we're kind of preaching, but at the same time, every single day we have to get better. And that's how we're taking it. We're taking it a day at a time. Today we got better. Still a lot more we can improve on, but we're moving in the right direction.
Future Hall of Famer Vince Carter joining us now. Vince, what's going on? How we doing?
I'm doing well. All is good.
I just got to ask you one thing. Producers are going to kill me, but I've always wanted to ask you this. You played 22 years in the NBA. How do you have that longevity? Is it just amazing genes, or did you have this incredibly clean diet? Did you go to bed at 8 o'clock? Like, give me one tip, one thing.
And this is going to sound corny and just so underwhelming, but it's the willingness to do whatever it takes to stick around, honestly. For me, it was just I had a laundry list of things to do. And, you mentioned some of them, working out, eating healthy, getting to the arena early to get that motor started. But if I wasn't willing to stick to my game plan and stick to that laundry list of things to do, I wouldn't be around. And, some people will see it and be like, oh, okay, well, I can do 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, and 8 and not do the other 5 or 6 that's left off the list. And that's when, if you continue to chop that list off, you're out of the league.
Can I say something about that real quick before we move on? What impressed me so much, Vince, is that I know it's off topic, but you weren't just you stuck around because you were willing to adapt your game and become a different kind of player and a different kind of role. But because you were willing to do that, not all superstars are. You not only hung around for those years, you were a valuable contributor on every team. Like you were a player that any team would want to have, even super late into your career. It's very few guys have ever done that.
Yeah. Thanks for indulging me.
Thanks, first of all, Max. And let me say this. I felt it was humbling, obviously going to a reserve role. And as you get older, how can I stick around and what am I willing to accept? And I still had to make sure that jump shot was still working. And, as long as you're making shots, you'll stick around.
It was wet late in your career.
You know it.
All right. But a ton of respect, honestly, for that discipline and consistency and longevity. It's remarkable. All right. You also won a gold medal. So are we too concerned about Team USA, Vince? Talk to me.
Anytime the U.S. team lose, it's of concern, no doubt. But I think the conversation in the locker room, I hear people talking about the roster. Well, the roster is what it is. We can't do anything about that. So how do you fix it? Well, I think on the defensive side, first and foremost, on-ball defending and the three-point line, guarding the three-point line. Nigeria shot the lights out from the three-point line. And it made them vulnerable on the dribble drive, because now you're trying to close out late, pump fake, they're getting in the paint. Patty Mills right here, like shooting the fadeaway three, but then he's able to get into the paint and getting layups. I mean, you don't see him doing that in the NBA game. So that is the thing. Look at that. Just on a Kevin Durant type guy, there's things you cannot allow in this game because you're going to see Jokic, you may see Gasol. And a few other bigs, Gobert, not really a offensive threat like that. When I'm talking about as far as having size, they have enough and they have enough scoring, but you still have to guard the ball to keep them out of the paint because and I think establishing roles when we need scoring, here's who we have: Kevin Durant, Damian Lillard, Bradley Beal, and of course Booker, and maybe you can put Middleton when they get there. Those are our guys, and everybody else kind of falls in line after that. I think that is the concern of understanding what's what. And then in the last thing I'm going to add is the schedule. These guys are not trying to get their legs back. Maybe took it for granted. Oh, this is just an exhibition, kind of like preseason. You go through the motions, blah, 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 blah. Well, it's a little different when you're losing in the exhibition game, talking about the Olympics, because it's a lot on the line representing your country more so than playing a preseason game going into an 82-game season.
I think we are appropriately concerned about this team, Vince. Look, when we send, and Pop and Bradley Beal were talking about this at the press conference, when we send a team like this, first of all, this is not our very best team. our best roster would be Steph, Harden, Kawhi, if everyone was healthy. Steph, Harden, Kawhi, LeBron, KD. And our sixth man would probably be AD. And our seventh man would be Damian Lillard, right? So what we have on this roster is one starter and our seventh man as our two best players probably on this team. So it's not our very best team. When we send our very best, it's like the Brooklyn Nets. Well, they didn't play together long enough. The Brooklyn Nets, if they would have stayed healthy, were going to lay waste to everybody. They were destroying the Bucks, and they weren't even healthy. So that's what we do. We put together these guys who don't have multi-year commitments to the Olympics or to Team USA, but they're so good, they just can't lose. They can't lose. Okay, that's not this team. When we go down off our very best, the world is caught up. Most of these teams that we've lost to and, or that are competing with us have 3 or 4 NBA players, 3 or 4 EuroLeague players, right? A half dozen dudes at least who can play. They have played together for a long time. They know each other. So I liken it to like in the NCAA tournament. The one and dones don't usually win the whole thing. Teams with upperclassmen, they've been together for 2, 3, 4 years. Maybe they have 2 or 3 guys who might be in an NBA rotation. They don't have a whole bunch of top picks. Those teams win it. Sometimes if you have AD, you have the number 1 and 2 picks in the draft, right? Okay, fine. Michael Gilchrist, you're going to win the championship because you just got too much. But that's usually not the way it works, and that's not the team we sent. So they're going to have to play defense. They're going to have to get connected. They're going to have to hurry up and do that because these other teams want it more. Most of their players, this is the biggest stage they'll ever play on. It's the most important thing to them. Not the case with most of our guys. And they've played together longer. They have better chemistry. So, Vince, to me, it's like you can have an all-star roster, let's say 3 starters and a couple reserves. If they play and they just got together that week, if they play an NBA team that didn't make the playoffs, but they've been together for a year or 2, they might lose to that team, even if they're more talented. To me, that's where we are, and I'm nervous about it.
Well, also, and you look at the Australian team, I mean, they had 5 guys at one point on the floor that all play in the NBA currently, like you said. And I think I'm looking back to 2000, my year. And, it was 92. You know what that is, 96. And then there was our team, and they were like, oh, can we win it? And, it was like, oh, it's more parity because there's more European players now entering in the NBA who know these players. And it's not the wow or awe factor anymore. Mm-hmm. And these guys are like, yeah, I mean, I play against these guys every day. They can actually give you a scouting report on these guys. Not like, oh, we watched them on TV. It's like, I know what to expect. So I think the first 2 games, these guys kind of like, yeah, we're trying to get ourselves back into it. Some of them may be tired. I mean, just imagine what Booker, Holiday, and Middleton are going to feel like when they get back, just tired. So I think they need to get their legs under them. That's something Pop talked about. And just understand, no, we need to go and dominate like we're supposed to. I think they're good enough. They have enough scoring. And the biggest adjustment I think Pop made was putting a scoring starting 5 in there instead of defensively. And because you can switch everything. They're going to switch regardless, but they needed scoring. They needed scoring, particularly if you don't have your legs.
Yeah. And Vince, it didn't hurt that they heard all the chirping from all of us here on television to get it going with that lopsided win. All right, so 2 more exhibition games, then they begin Olympic play against France. And I really wanted to show that ridiculous dunk you had against France. We can't.
Oh, yeah,
He's not even allowed in the country of France after that French advice dunk.
Banned for life. Give me like your top 2 dunks ever. I just want an excuse to show the footage.
Well, it's unfortunate we can't show that because there's a wonderful story behind it because I didn't realize it. But most talked about to me is the Alonzo Mourning dunk for a lot of reasons. I mean, historic. I mean, top 5 all-time shot blocker or whatnot. And just having a conversation with RJ prior to that at halftime, and then it came to fruition. And then, then the dunk against the Pacers. And both of these dunks, honestly, were protecting myself. The first dunk on Zoe, I protected myself to take the hit, and that's what was the result. The dunk against the Pacers, they had the Bruise brothers. So I see Dale Davis coming down on the one side of the paint. So I said, let me go to the other side of the rim. And, fortunate for me that it was right there and I dunked the ball backwards. But I was protecting myself. That's why I turned my body against Zoe. And that's why I reverse dunk. You see here on the baseline drive, I see Dale Davis coming. So I'm like, no, I'm going to the other side.
The range of players he's played against, just looking at this footage, Max.
I know, right?
It's unbelievable. It's like all grainy and then last year. It's ridiculous. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, the Frederick Weiss dunk, like, you need to apologize to Frederick Weiss, to his family, to his ancestors. I mean, like, what? You must feel some remorse somewhere. That was remorseless, Vince. Do you ever watch that and be like, damn, man, that wasn't even right what I did to that man?
I still am wowed by it because I didn't know that happened during the game. I found out after the game of actually what happened. And, I won't tell all the story, but, you can look it up. There were some stories that Frederick Weiss had a rough time dealing with this, with his
Hard
health.
to watch.
Yeah.
And like you said, not being allowed in his country, and he had to play in Spain. And all of these, he's now allowed back. He's now back in France, and I know he's a broadcaster at some level. So I'm glad he's doing well now. I'll say that.
Yeah, sure.
Really interesting story.
Imagine a dunk sending someone's life sideways. That's a dunk.
Unbelievable. So great having you on. A story time with Vince anytime. You just let us know when. We'll be here same time, same place. We'll talk to you soon. Stay safe.
Always a pleasure.
All right,
guys.
take care. When we come back, is today the day Kendrick Perkins finally admits raises even more concerns among those who think the U.S. team should be dominating these matchups. Prior to the game, our own Kendrick Perkins tweeted, "I got Team USA by 20 tonight. Don't at me and carry the hell on." Perk, your statistics are suffering, but I do love these bold predictions. You do swing for the fences. I'm not going to start with you, though. I'm going to start with Stephen A. Stephen A., things obviously not going as people thought they would for Team USA. Do you think we should be panicking at this point?
I wouldn't say panic. It's exhibition. It already looks bad, but it is an exhibition, no question about it. What I would tell you is that individual players should be on high alert. They don't, no matter what they say, they care about how they're perceived. They care about their quote-unquote brand. They care about a lot of these things, particularly if you're somebody like Kevin Durant, who I believe is the best player on the planet when healthy. The bottom line is that if you lose something like this, no one ever wants to hear about you eclipsing LeBron again. They're not going to want to hear it. Yes, it's exhibition. It's Olympic play. It's not the NBA. But still, those kind of things are going to be counted against you, particularly when you're piggybacking off a season in which James Harden comes in there. He's not in shape. Kyrie Irving taking time off before he's back. Playoffs begin. He gets hurt. James Harden's never fully healthy during the postseason. You guys decide you don't really need a coach with any experience, so you okay Steve Nash coming on board. So many of these things are going to be brought up about KD. To a lesser degree with Lillard. Lillard's one of those dudes that I think he's a superstar. I think he's elevated his profile, et cetera, et cetera. We all view him a bit differently than we used to, and we should because he is a mega star. The flip side to it, again, is that when we look at this team and we see KD and Damian Lillard, but y'all lost, to some of the players on Argentina and Nigeria before that. That's a bad look.
Yeah, it is panic time. I mean, when I say panic, I don't mean run around like a chicken without a head, but yeah, you got to be super concerned right now if you're Team USA. There's a reason they've never lost 2 exhibitions in a row until now. Not only is the rest of the world caught up for a variety of reasons, they're getting better at basketball. It's the fastest growing team sport in the world. It's the best sport there is, let's face it. And as a result, the gap has narrowed. The rules favor lesser teams, like a closer three-point line. When things are made a little easier, it means that talent is leveled a little bit because you don't have to be as talented to do certain things. Okay, so there's an example on the margins that levels things a little bit. These international teams they're playing have 4 or 5 sometimes guys who are NBA-ish, sometimes half a dozen players who are NBA-ish type talent, either NBA or EuroLeague kind of level talent, like very high level talent. And more importantly, they've been playing together for years. They make multi-year commitments to their national teams. So if you were to take an all-star team in the NBA, let's say not all starters, 3 starters and 2 reserves, because that's the kind of team we sent. We didn't send Steph and Harden and Kawhi and LeBron and KD, right? That team couldn't lose if they tried. We didn't send 5 MVPs. We sent, some all-star starters and some reserves. If that team just got together, practiced for a couple weeks and had to play a team, even if it wasn't a playoff team, but an NBA team that had been playing together for a couple of years, they might lose. They might lose some games. That's possible. That's why in the NCAA tournament, a lot of like one and done type teams don't usually win the whole thing unless it's a Kentucky team that has the number 1 and 2 picks in the draft. That's not the kind of team we sent this time. So without an absurd everyone on the team is an MVP caliber player type team, we're playing teams that play together and who want it more. And for the first time ever, have lost 2 exhibitions in a row.
Well, here it is. I'm not going to say it's time to panic because they have too much offensive firepower. They're too gifted offensively. I will say this, though. They have to get better on the defensive side of things. And when I look at the defensive side of things and watching Team USA, it's a reflection on who. And we have to address the elephant in the room, and it's Greg Popovich, right? In these last 2 games, he has been getting out coached. He has done a poor job of having these guys prepared for these games on the defensive side of things. And to take it to another level, I just don't understand, and I'm not going at Greg Popovich as a person. I'm talking about as a basketball coach, and being part of a basketball coach, just like we hold players accountable with their media, the way that they address the media, and we talk about how sensitive players are. That interview that he did last night and the disrespect that he showed towards Joe Varden last night was flat out ridiculous. I mean, the man was doing his job. Greg Popovich, he should have been mad at himself. He should have went screamed at himself. He talked to the man like he was a child. When was the last time Greg Popovich done something? When Tim Duncan was there, Kawhi Leonard left. Well, Kawhi Leonard left and showed the world that I don't need Pop. I can go win a ring on my own. But besides all that, listen, here it is, okay? Greg Popovich has to humble himself. We watch all-time great coaches like John Thompson be one of the class act guys when it comes to the media. We watch Red Auerbach be a class act guy when it comes to the media. Y'all take light to Greg Popovich and those little comments he be making to the media and saying, "Oh, that's just Pop." I take it as a sign of disrespect. Just like we hold players accountable and say that they shouldn't be sensitive. It's their job to do the media. It's also head coach's job to make sure that they meet the requirements to do the media.
Well, let me say this to you. Greg Popovich has been truculent on a lot of occasions. And when I think that Greg Popovich needs to be called out is that in large part, he is the one who's instigated load management. What he did with guys, I remember an all-time story. Y'all have heard the story before, but it's worth repeating over the national airwaves. Because of his personal beef with former Commissioner David Stern, God rest his soul, they had a nationally televised game, and Greg Popovich, he hated doing the interviews during the game, and, he hated back-to-backs, and obviously he didn't take kindly to those things, and everybody that covers the NBA knows that Greg Popovich had a beef with David Stern over that stuff. Well, one time they had a nationally televised game in Miami against LeBron and the Heat. And Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and Tony Parker were spotted at a Chick-fil-A in Orlando. And that's how we all found out they weren't going to be playing that night because Popovich sent them home on Southwest Airlines. That's a true story, okay? This is what Popovich does. So
weren't there times they didn't even get on the plane to go to the city? They just left them at home.
They left Orlando because they played Orlando the night before. They went there. Now, so Perk is right about Popovich and what Popovich has gotten away with to some degree. What I would say to you, Perk, is last night is not a good example. The man, Greg Popovich, said, "Can I finish my thought? And then I'll listen to you. Let me finish. And then once I finish, I'll listen to you respond." And there's absolutely nothing wrong with him. No. I say he wasn't raised, he wasn't screaming at the guy, anything like that. He's entitled to do that.
No, you're right in terms of one person speaks, you listen, the next person speaks. Let me just say one thing, Perk. But the fact that he was talking about, the reporter was actually right about the exhibition games.
Well, actually,
the 54-2 versus the 2 losses, they've already reached the loss to it. So that's what he's saying. The reporter was trying to interrupt to say, like, no.
I don't think that's actually, I think the argument was your blowouts. Pop objected to the use of the term blowout. He goes,
yes, because in the
exhibition
games.
Right, the reporter said, here's the average point differential in the losses.
Yeah.
And Popovich's point seemed to me to be, forget about the average for a second. Sometimes we do blow out teams. Against the good teams, under these circumstances, usually there aren't blowouts. That's the argument they were having, it seems to me.
Max, look, Max, Stephen A. Miley, I don't even care about, it wasn't what Pop said, it's how he said it. And if you go back and look at that interview, he was talking to that man as if he was a damn child. And that's not how it go. I was raised up in a household where my grandparents told me, you respect the janitor just like you'll respect the principal. And that's not how that interview came across last night. So if y'all go back and watch that and tell me that y'all got this, that y'all seen anything different the way Pop addressed that grown man last night, then y'all tripping.
I've seen Popovich significantly worse, and maybe that's no excuse, but I've seen him significantly worse, and I found nothing wrong with him saying, can I finish my thought? And then I'll listen to you. Could you let me finish my sentence?
He didn't say it like that, though, Stephen A. He didn't say it like that.
We played the tape a few minutes ago.
But it wasn't with that tone. He said it with a type of aggression that was uncalled for.
Perk, I'll say this. That at first I agree with you. He gave the Popovich thing that sometimes Belichick does, that Bill Parcells used to bullying the reporter a little bit. When the reporter stood up for himself, then Popovich said, let me finish, and the reporter wouldn't. I actually felt at that point the reporter was being a little rude. And Popovich said, and then I'll listen to you. And once he said that, I think it was all right.
All right.
Okay.
And what does Grandma say about the way you speak to me on this show? That's what I want to know, Perk.
I'm with you, Perk, though. At the end of the day, we're all the same. You got to treat everyone the same. It shows a lot about somebody's character. All right, we will leave it there. When we come back, still to come, wait until you hear what LeBron said about how many more years he plans.